You're listening to Faith Connections podcast, where we are dedicated to connecting you to your faith. And now your hosts, Chris and Mari Torres.
Hey guys, thank you for tuning in to Faith Connections. It's Chris and Mari
Torres.
Welcome. We're excited. I know we just kind of finished a 3-part series. We talked about the big F, one of the hardest thing that it's one of the hardest things that we actually do, right?
Forgive.
And that's forgiveness. We talked about how when we're able to forgive, we gain freedom
To move forward.
right? We get our power back because we gain freedom, and we're able to move forward. So we talked about that. And so today is, of course, today's episode, we're 2 days away from our 1-year anniversary. I know we've been talking about that in July. It's already been a year, but to the day. So our first episode aired on the 18th of July of 2023. So here we are, July 16th of 2024. So we wanted to share something with you, right? Because I feel like we all have something that God places in our hearts. It's a vision, it's a goal, but we have to run with it. So we're going to be talking about running with the vision. Run with the vision, run with the vision. And it comes from Habakkuk 2, verses 2 through 4. And it says this. It says, write the vision, make it plain on tablets, so he may run who reads it. For still the vision awaits its appointed time. It hastens to the end. It will not lie. If it seems slow, wait for it. It will surely come. It will not delay. Yeah.
Speaks volumes.
It does. It does. I think, there's many times that there's something that's in our hearts that whether, of course, God places a lot of things in our hearts. It's a goal, it's a dream. Man, I would love to do this. And, we want to apply it to our lives because it could be anything. It could be regarding, we have a goal with our finances. We have a dream of accomplishing a certain thing, whether it's in the workplace, maybe it's in life, maybe it's to accomplish whatever it is. It encompasses so many different things, a vision, a dream, a goal. Yeah, absolutely. It's even like when you're serving in ministry and God's like, okay, you need to do this. And you're like, oh, okay. Right. But here, I kind of want to break this down real quick. And I know you have a lot of things or some things to share, but here, if you kind of read Habakkuk, he's complaining to God. He's complaining to God, and he's complaining to God because of all the wickedness. He just doesn't understand. Like, God, how are you allowing this to happen? Why? And so he's complaining and complaining. And so God's like, hey, I have a plan and a purpose. Trust me, keep the faith. Hey, write the vision down, make it plain so that he who runs will read it. Right. And he also talks about be patient. Be patient. It will come to fruition in its appropriate time. The vision will come to life when it's meant to come to life. But we have to be patient. And I think that's the hardest thing because we're very impatient people. We want things and we want them in the now, right? Like, no, I need it now, or I want it now. And so there's so many things that are left unaccomplished by many of us because we're not willing to put in the work. We're not willing to write the vision down. We're not willing to be patient and wait for the fruit, right? To be able to wait for the appropriate time of when it's going to come to fruition.
So as you were reading it, I was writing a few things down here, but write the vision. Like we talked about earlier, it could be a big decision. And I know at our church, our pastor has always said, and we've read it, and we've heard it through other Christians, other friends of ours, that big decisions, you should always go to prayer, right? It's always go to prayer. So here, whatever the vision, whatever God has placed in your heart, if it's, maybe your goal, well, first of all, let me backtrack. If the vision is you want to have a nice house, build your own house, or purchase a vehicle, and I know you have a testimony with that. But write the vision down. When we write it down, now we're putting action behind our dreams, behind what we envision, right? And when you write it down, it's more likely that you're gonna turn that vision and that dream into reality. And and of course, there's so much right now to unravel here in these two scripture, in these two verses here, because write the vision, and then I put on there, make a plan. With that vision, make a plan. And there's other scriptures in Matthew. I can't verbatim right now tell you which ones, but there's a scripture in Matthew when the builder. If you want to build a house, suppose you want to build a house, then don't you gotta assess how much it's gonna cost you, and have a plan,
A strategy,
right? So if you write the vision down, that's you already putting it your dream. Now you're gonna live it out. You're gonna put action behind it, and hopefully make a plan. It's your goal. Now it's become a goal. It's moved from thought and vision. It's just like, just out of, I guess, to correlate it differently, is like if you have an evil thought and you carry it out, it's the action that becomes the sin, right? When you do something, you have an evil thought. So it's not a sin to think of things. It's the sin when you actually do it, carry it out, right? Because you have control over your thoughts. You can change that. But when you don't, you bring it to life, then you commit the sin, you commit the act. Same thing with this. You have a vision. You write it down, you make a plan.
Yeah.
So he who reads it, that could be your family. You get people to partake in it. We talked about the inner circle, people who are going to motivate you, that help you get there to achieve and accomplish that goal. So who are the runners? Those that are around you. If it's a husband and, if the wife wants a car, then the husband has to buy into that vision. So because it's a team effort, it's a household effort. Your children are going to have to sometimes feel the pinch and the sacrifice that, hey, we can't purchase you the next PS5 game or Xbox game because why? We're saving a little bit of extra money so we can have funds for Christmas or whatever, whatever the plan is, whatever the vision is. You want nice things, you got to work hard for it. So sometimes that means one of us has to step up and do some overtime at work, get an extra hours or whatever to supplement that extra income that we need to help us reach that goal, that plan. So write the vision, make a plan, have a goal. But the key thing there is be patient. Because how many times have we had a vision and then, oh yeah, I want that, I'm going to get that. And then you forget about it, and then you lose patience, and you no longer are working at it. Instead, I was saving up for that, but I'm never gonna get it. I can't afford it. It's too expensive. I'm not gonna. It's unattainable for me. And you give up on it. Why? Because we lose patience. Just like you said earlier, we want them in the now. We want them right now, at the snap of our fingers. But the key word was there: be patient. It seems slow in coming. Wait patiently. Because we want nice things, it works hard. How long did it take us before we built our house? We sat on this property. It was just a wooded area, a lot. For 3 years.
3 years.
It was 3 years. We were saving money. We were working hard. And I kept working a lot of overtime, making extra sacrifices to help us get there, right? Because at that point we made it into a goal. It was no longer just a vision. It was a goal to custom build our own home. And it came to fruition.
I think too. So the first thing I know, it's interesting how you shared you had 3 points, and those are the 3 points that I have. And the first one is write the vision, right? So I kind of let's kind of break that down, right? Write the vision. And I think that's the key thing is if there's something that you're wanting to accomplish, if you have a dream, if you have a goal, if God places something in your heart, write it down. Now, by writing it down, you're probably like literally thinking, write it down. Well, the reason you want to write it down or capture something in some sort of way of it, and I'll explain, that might look different, and I'll kind of explain right now with a testimony that I can share, but it's because you might forget. You said that. Like, it's like, man, so many other things kind of got in the way, and you're like, what was it that and then it becomes, or it just becomes, it doesn't become something important because you didn't make it important. You didn't make it a priority, right? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Or you're like, well, it's not time for that, or I'm not there yet. And then you start kind of, you have a vision, you have a goal, you have a dream, yet it's been crushed right before it even took off. You didn't run with it because you didn't run with it. And that's what it is. You didn't run with
The
it.
seed was planted, but you didn't water it.
Exactly.
You give up watering it at that point.
And you know, I can tell you, like, you talked about our home, man. I was like, man, okay, we want to build our home. We would love to live out in the country on land. God placed that in our hearts, and we're like, okay, we had to take a risk because a risk for you more than me. But we moved in with my mom, right? It was not a very good 3 years for you, but what I'm saying, it was a sacrifice.
That's why I worked a lot to stay away.
But it was a sacrifice, right?
Yes.
It wasn't easy.
No.
But the thing is, if we wouldn't have taken that step of moving out of our first home, moved out, then we would have never probably done it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
It's like, but we knew, hey, this is what we want to accomplish. And if we don't do it now, we're never going to do it. Let's take that step, right? So that's a perfect step.
Right.
I know, of course, I recently had to get a new car, this vehicle, but it was 9 years in the making. 9 years, because I love my car and I didn't want to give it away. And, you know, it had a
2015
spiritual
Chevy Cruze.
Yes, my little car. I've hit a couple of deer, couple of cars, right? So
Whatever
it was
gets
my
in the
car.
way.
Yeah, whatever got in my way. It wasn't me. It was them.
You should have been driving a Dodge.
I know. Yeah.
If you can't dodge it,
Ram it. Yeah. So, but it was, you know, God stripped me away from materialism. So it's like, man, that car had like.
It represented your life.
It did. It did. It absolutely did. And I was so
It was still
attached
running
to
with
it.
bumps and bruises.
Yes,
and
but I was so attached to it, right? And so, you know, for 9 years, and it's like, okay. And so I remember, I know, like around 2022, we're like, oh, well, I mean, eventually I am going to need a new car, right? Because you already know it's getting older. You're having to take it into the shop. If it ain't one thing, it's another, right? More frequent. So you're like, okay. And so we were talking about it. And I remember, I was like, ooh, well, what's my dream car, right? And so I think we were going on a conference, and I was getting on my phone and like looking at them, right? And I'm like, okay,
them,
yeah. And then I was like, ooh, let me custom make what, you know, my dream car. And so I did, and I was like, ooh, well, you know, it's kind of affordable. But I remember that after a while, and I was thinking about it, I was like, God's like, Mari, is this really the car, right? And I was like, yeah, no, this is not the car. And so then I kind of like, whatever, I didn't fulfill that because that wasn't for me. I knew it. I'm listening to God's voice. And I remember I went back and I'm like, ooh, well, what about this car? And so I went to the webpage, and I remember I custom made it. I took a screenshot, right? October of 2022, because I still have the picture, and it shows like when you did the picture.
Timestamp.
And so October 2022, and I was like, okay, if I get a car, it would definitely be this car. Color, everything, right? Because you get to
felt
make
right
it.
about it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, yeah. I was like, oh,
definitely, yeah.
okay. But then I put it away because I was like, it's the vision. God's like, okay, this is the car that I want for you, you know? And I'm like, okay. But it wasn't a priority because it was like something that I needed now. But when the time comes to get a car, then it might be this car.
And we probably could have afforded it at that time.
Oh yeah, I could have gone to go get it, but
It wasn't a need. There was a wants and needs.
exactly.
And
There wasn't a need for it. But
Right.
hey, that vision was placed. I did fulfill it by writing down the vision, custom making it to how I wanted it in that moment, October of 2022. But I'm not in need right now, so I'm just gonna save
Leave it
it.
as is.
Leave it as is for when the time is right. Be patient. I did my part. I wrote it down. And so even though I didn't literally, I'm not an artist, I didn't write it down. I wrote it down in terms of with technology. So
Right.
it can be however it is that you do it. You can go custom make something, take a picture, or go to Pinterest and take a picture of your future home or whatever that looks like for you. But you have a vision. You have something, right? That says, hey, this is what I want to accomplish, or this is my goal, or this is what God placed in my heart. Whatever that is, you have a vision. And so I remember, you know, this year, towards the beginning of this year, I had to put my car in the shop, and I still didn't want to go get a new car. Like I just, you know, I'm like, no, like I love my car. I don't want to get rid of my car. And I remember you were just like, no, Mari, we need to go get you a car. And then I remember when you telling me that.
Because our oldest son was already
Yeah.
going to start driving.
Correct. So we
And
were
instead
like,
of
well,
buying him a car, it was like, better
Yeah.
mama get a car than
yeah. And so then when you said it, and then it just, I had peace. I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, let's go get a car, right? And we did. And the interesting thing is that even when we, you know, there was maybe different dealerships, but it's like God already knew. He had it ordained for that place, for that moment, and to get the car that I had already on my phone that I totally forgot about. I forgot about the color. I forgot exactly how I wanted it built. And then I was there and we were looking and we were talking about contemplating on the different colors. And, I didn't really find one that I like fell in love with. So I was like, well, can we custom make it? Yes. Okay, perfect. And so as we custom make it there, right, it was custom made exactly to how I custom made it October of 2022. Right. So that's when like, okay.
Well, and you came across your screenshot.
I did.
As you were there.
As I was there, I was like, oh my God, this is it. This is the
Photoshopped
car. And, so this is how I knew God gave me the vision. He said, this is the time and this is when it's going to come. Right. And so you think about 9 years, but God knows that this is the interesting thing. And I love it here because see, Habakkuk, since he was complaining and God's like, hey, he had to first see the vision, right? I think that's the first key here when you think about that. He needed to listen and hear God's voice, his guidance, his response to his prayers, and everything that he places in our hearts. Like Habakkuk, I got you. There's a reason and a purpose, and it ain't going to be for now. It's going to be for the future, right? The second thing, Habakkuk had to make it known. He had to write it down, right? Whatever it was that God was speaking, because it was going to be used for whoever read it. He needed to also make it plain and practical. Don't overthink it. Don't complicate it. I think I shared earlier, it's like we can start getting in our own way of, and then we deteriorate this goal, this dream, or what God has placed in our hearts ourselves. And when we do that, well, you're never going to be able to accomplish it. I love this too, because it says, so he may run who reads it. It doesn't say that he who runs may read it. It doesn't say that. It says, so he may run who reads it. And that just goes back to, we have to run with a vision. Don't wait to read it and then run. No, when God gives it to you, you run with it by writing it down, by putting it in paper, electronically, whatever that is, and go with it. Same thing with Faith Connections. That's the reason Faith Connections is still here, because God placed a vision in our hearts and said, now, do we to this day know exactly where this is going to lead, what it's going to do, whether we have 5 followers to 500 to 5 million? That's not what we're concerned about, because, again, God says, what? Be patient and keep the faith, because in due time, it will come to life. There is a reason and a purpose. So it's not for us to be concerned about what that is.
So we only have one listener listening today and they're getting something out of it. It's meant
That's
for
all that matters. Exactly.
That's the purpose.
We don't need to worry about it. We're just vessels. Right. God's the expert.
Well, we're the runners.
Yeah, we're the runners. And that's exactly it. We're the runners. We're just listening and obeying God and the vision that he gave us. So, it's important that we write the vision, whatever that looks like, that we keep track of the progress, right? Once we run with it, like that we listen to those signs and the voices and the confirmation that God sends us in many ways, kind of like you having to say, nope, yep, we're going to have to go get a car. Okay. Like I had a peace, like, okay, yeah, it's time.
And this is the vision that we're talking about. It has to do with every aspect of your life. Whether it's a financial, we your testimony here was a big financial decision that we had to make, but we could afford the payment. We were ready. So everything lined up perfectly. So we were okay with it.
Yeah.
So it was a vehicle in your part, but for you as a listener, it can be your health. Lining up, get the vision is that the goal is to get better, feel better. Right. So eventually we're going to get there. But in the meantime, we have to be patient and we have to line that vision that God has for us. Go through every doctor, go through the psychologist, go see, take your medications, whatever the prescription may be. Right. So that could be, like I said, health wise. It could also be finances. It can be in your relationship. What do I need to work on?
Yeah.
What is my vision? Where do I see my relationship 5 years from now? Where do I see my relationship 10 years from now?
Yeah.
Where do I want my marriage to go? Where do I want my children to be at 5 years from now?
Correct.
Where do I want my children to be 10 years from now? Right. That's the vision you have. We all want them to go to college and succeed and make money and have better jobs than we did.
Yeah.
But what are we doing in the meantime? Right. So we have to write the vision down and then set a plan, set a goal. what do we do with our children? We push them. Hey, you got to get scholarships. Hey, you got to be at the top of your class.
Yeah.
Hey, what are your grades at? Where are you at right now?
You know, it's interesting.
There's different aspects in life that we have to write the
It
vision
is.
down.
It's interesting because when I sit with people that want help with their finances, right, being in the financial industry, and I sit with them, the majority of them don't write down like a list of their expenses, the income coming in, the extra. They don't have anything. They don't have anything like that.
Yeah.
And of course, now there's many ways you can get that electronically, right? A lot of the bank apps have spending reports and things like that. They keep track of that for you. But I'm like, okay, so I remember I met with this person, this specific person, individual, single, didn't really have a lot of bills. And I'm like, okay, well, how much do you make, right? And X amount. Oh, what are your bills? I'm like, okay, so then the bills. And like, they had quite a bit of money left over. I'm like, okay, so how do you like manage this when you get paid? And they're like, well, I just, the money comes in, I pay what I got to pay, and that's it. I was like, you don't move money to your savings account. There was no plan in place. And so when I wrote it down for them and I'm like, okay, every time you get paid, this is what it is. This is, if you can set a budget, right? And then move money over, like, man, you have a lot of money to work with. How long ago could you have done this and maybe already saved a lot more money? Right. And so it's interesting. And I'm just like, because there's no plan. And so if there's no plan, then how do you expect to ever get there, meet something? You can't meet something if there's no goal, right? If there's no vision, if there's nothing. And I feel like, man, God, everything we have is a blessing from God. But when God has given us the vision, we've run with it.
Right.
We've run with it. Okay, we're going to do this. All right, let's do it. Now, we're not worried and concerned about how are we going to pay for it or how are we going to, Faith Connections, the equipment. I don't know. Like, what is that going to look like? I don't know. Just keep praying on it. Just keep listening to God. Just keep moving.
Right.
Don't worry about it. Just keep moving. And I feel like that's key, right? That's key because that's what gets in the way of not being able to accomplish things in life, right? So write the vision, keep track of your progress, but we also have to keep the faith. Keep the faith. Like you said, we have to be patient. It's his timing,
Right.
not ours.
And you're touching on it, but that's how this is going to transition to part 2 of this, because being patient requires discipline. Being patient requires discipline. And many of us are undisciplined.
Yeah.
We don't have the discipline.
No.
We're undisciplined.
Yeah.
And we want to do what we want to do.
Correct.
Like little children, we throw our tantrums because we want it our way. So
Are you speaking about someone that you know, like yourself?
For every finger you point, there's 4 more pointing right back at you, right? So, but yes, discipline, right? Discipline is the hard part for the human, because the flesh, as you spoke earlier, you alluded to it, the flesh gets in the way.
Yeah.
So we'll be coming back with part 2 on the discipline.
Yeah. So just remember, right? Run with the vision. Don't wait around. If God gives you something that's going to be for 5 years from now, 10 years from now, it doesn't matter. Write it down. Make a plan. Be ready, right? So write the vision. Keep track of the progress, right? And keep the faith. Be patient. It's God's timing, right?
God is faithful, and then you got to keep the faith.
Yeah. But thank you for tuning in. We hope that you subscribe, you like, you share. Thank you for tuning in to Faith Connections, where we connect you to your
Faith.